So welcome, Victoria. We're looking forward to hearing from you today at this really good time of the year to buy books, because this is
Yes.
the time of the year that I given a book that someone has chosen for me. So it's always interesting to see
To
what
see
they
what,
think I like. So
yes, I know.
um,
Isn't that fun? I love that
yes,
too.
it is.
Well,
And
I
so
also have a category I'm going to talk today about books for people who don't read. So I can even I can even help that. Um, do you want me to just go ahead and start or?
yes, please.
Okay. So before we get too far, I wanted to remind everyone that our annual gift card sale is going to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you
Okay.
can get a $25 gift card for $20, a $100 gift card for $80, and if you really want to go full gun, a $200 gift card for $150. So those are significant savings. Did I miss the TNC one? Have they done that already?
Yes, it was last Monday.
Oh, I'm so sad. I don't know. I guess I didn't check my emails. Okay. But we're going to be doing that starting tomorrow. So
Okay.
that's good and for those people who you can't quite decide what gift to give, that's always a good gift too.
It
Um,
is.
so also, this coming Monday is a Cyber Monday for those of you. Oh, did you need our attention?
Quick, quick question. Can we buy online and then pick them up?
Unfortunately, they're not available online. You do have to come in the store
Okay.
for the particular thing. However, online on Monday, you can get a 20% discount on most books. There's occasionally some book that for some reason has a high discount or something, but most books, 20% off, and you just have to enter coupon code EHBC20.
Okay.
And that's it. When you check out, it'll ask for the coupon code, and that'll automatically deduct 20% off your purchases. So
But for the
that's,
gift cards, you have to come in.
yeah, you do have to come in. However, we will mail them to you. If you want to call by phone, if you don't want to come in the store, we can do that too.
Okay. Thank you.
Victoria, what about calendars and things like that and all the wonderful doodads that you have there? Are those going to be on sale on Monday too?
I believe so. Well, wait, no, on Monday. Oh, you mean online?
No, I meant if I come into the store.
On Monday. I can't say for sure. That's not my area, so I
Okay.
don't know that it is. I think that's just the online order. So, and it's on books. So the calendars will go on sale soon. I have not heard yet what the date is going to be. So, I have these in sort of a random order, but I'm going to start first with, I guess I could say, current events. Some of these, one of the books is something I know you all have probably heard about and talked about a lot, and that's Cat.
Yes.
By Isabel Wilkerson. And it is, to me, one of the most important books to read this year. A great gift for people who are sort of struggling to figure out where we're going nationally, what the issue is with racism in our country and institutional racism. And this talks about it as a little even further evolved than that, in that it's really a unique American caste system of which racism is a part. But it's a fascinating historical look at where we've gone in the country. So highly recommend this book.
Okay.
Everyone needs. Okay. Now, another book, I know some of you, because we've talked about this before, have read Ta-Nehisi's quote about Water Dancer, his book. This is a book called The Deepest South of All, True Stories from Natchez, Mississippi. And if you remember in that book, they kept talking about going Natchez Way. And at the time, I didn't really get what they meant, because having grown up in the Pacific Northwest, the Civil War was covered like, in a couple of weeks. It just wasn't, I didn't grow up thinking it was that big a deal. But this is an interesting book set in our times. I mean, it's not a novel, it's a real book, about sort of the interaction of folks in the Deep South. And Natchez was the center of the slave trade. And so this is a great book for someone who's interested in U.S. history. Everyone okay? I'm going to keep zipping through these. Who knew? Who on here does Twitter? No hands raised. I love that. Well, it will surprise you to know that Dan Rather is a big Twitter star, and that the younger generation of people who do Twitter breathe on his every word. So, hang on just one moment. I have someone asking a question. Yes, yes. Let me put my mask on. Hang on. I'm sorry. I'm going to hold up this book. Okay, go ahead.
What Unites Us?
What Unites Us by Dan Rather. And as one of our booksellers said, these are original essays by the former news journalist Dan Rather, and it reminds us of the principles upon which the United States was founded, principles that anyone should be reminded of, regardless of what side of the aisle. It's a breath of fresh air in a time when there's a plethora of not so optimistic political tomes. What she says, it's a necessary read for all American patriots. And I think she means that in the best way. I mean, some people think, oh, liberals don't call themselves patriots, Republicans call themselves what? But this is a really good book to give to someone that's sort of hopeful and forward-looking and full of common sense. So for those of us who thought of him as Gunga Dan when he was on 60 Minutes and going to Afghanistan, Dan Rather continues to deliver. Here's a gift that was interesting called Alone Together, Love, Grief, and Comfort in the Time of COVID-19. It's a series of writers from all over the country. One of the nice things about it is it was edited by Jennifer Haupt, who lives locally. She lives on the island right now, but she's gotten an amazing array of authors here. Lydia Yunkovich, Kwame Alexander, Jenna Bloom, Andre Dubal, talking about, reflecting on what was going on in those times when we were totally stuck in our homes. And I know it looks like this is going to be over relatively soon, but we still have a really hard road ahead of us. So I would think this might be a good read for someone who's kind of stuck at home still. And all right, do you need to look again? I'm never quite sure how.
Can you lift it higher so we may read who wrote who? So who would be the edited by Jennifer?
Yes, Jennifer Haupt.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. We're going to go to fiction really quick. And I'm really going to rush through these, but because I know in some of the previous talks, I've talked about some of them. Colson Whitehead has written a book called Nickel Boys, which is about a reformatory down in Florida, based on a true place, although this is a fiction story. And it's heartbreaking, but incredibly, yeah, I mean, it's a good, worthy read about, what is salvation, what happened at reform schools. Yeah, this is just a really good book. I'm not going to go too much further into it, but this, for someone who's a serious reader. I'm going to have to move for just a second. Oh, no, she said no. Okay. I'll be here for a little bit longer. This is the one we talked about a couple of minutes ago. I pointed out now, Water Dancer, because it's in paperback. So this is a nice one to slip under the holiday tree or bush.
Yeah.
And this tells a story of the enslaved in a way that I think gets you there far more than any books I had read in a long time. Although the Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead was also that way. So This is a good read.
And the Coates one too, Victoria, the one that you just had, is so poetic, so beautifully written.
Yeah, it really is. And I know, since we're talking with you right now, another one of your favorite books now is out in soft cover, and that's Stay and Fight by Madeline Fitch.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes. So this is a book set in Appalachia with a sort of impromptu family, it's oddly put together, and they're sort of, it's a good read. It's a funny read, but it's also a serious read. So, there you go. Very spirited, I guess, is one way to put it. Okay. I have not read.
And Madeline's mom and dad live on the island.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
She came right in as soon as it came out in paperback and picked up like 5, so good for her.
Excellent.
Vanishing Half this is a new release. It's about 2 sisters who separated, as they grow up, and one passed as white and married a doctor who did not know her background, and the other stayed in their community. And fascinating story, also very poetically written. So she's a good new writer to watch.
Yeah, I enjoyed that book.
Did you? Good.
Yes.
That's always a good recommendation.
Yeah.
Who has read Tana French's latest? And what do you say, Janet?
Well, she is one of my most favorite authors. So it's a little different, and it's very realistic. It's about Ireland and about a retired Chicagoan cop who goes to and gets
immediately gets involved. Yeah. So yeah, this is a good read.
I love Tara French.
I do too.
I was not disappointed with the last one that she came out with, but I was so used to having her doing the cops on the, from the all from the same unit. I thought that was so unique and wonderful the way she did that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where she goes next. Transcendent Kingdom is by the author who did Homegoing. This is about an immigrant family who is settled in sort of the American South, and the Ghanaian family. And again, it talks a lot about the immigrant experience. Is just apparently hypnotic in its I haven't read it yet. That's what I'm saying, but comes highly recommended by many. So good gift book, definitely. Or for yourself. Here's another one. I know our owner, David Danielson, has read this recently and highly recommends it. Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. Okay, everyone is, up. Does that look better?
Yes.
Okay. She's an Irish author. This is about basically Shakespeare and his wife had a son who did not live to adulthood. And this is the story of Hamnet, that young boy, and about the family. So it's less about Shakespeare as the writer than it is about a family saga. So very touching. Definitely put that. And I'm going to flash one book that I haven't read. It's sort of a fantasy book, but I've been hearing our younger readers or our younger adults, but they're still adults, not teens. The Once and Future Witches by Alex Harrow. I'm gonna disappear for 2 seconds. Think about this for a minute. Hang on just a moment. I need to let her get her stuff. No, that's okay.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
I'm at the one and only printer, so. I was tempted because we have been getting more requests for sort of women's fiction / romance books. I ended up not doing it because I just don't know that area very well. But Susan Wiggs, who is a Bainbridge author, does very, very fun books. And this one came out earlier this year, The Lost and Found Bookshop, which, obviously takes place in a little bookshop that's endangered and all that. But it's a sweet book, and, the lady gets the man and all that. But if you have people who likes that sort of thing, I often have people come in and say, my 95-year-old mother wants a hard-looking romance. There definitely, we have places to go. So let me know if you're interested. Okay. Now, here's my short little stack of books for people who don't read much, but you still want to give them a book. This is a book of wisdom. Julia Child, people who love to eat are always the best people. So it's just what it says. It's just full of little, smart quotes from Julia, the master, or the whatever. Yeah. So This is a nice gift book, something to put in a stocking. Or this one is a hefty book and a serious book in a very funny way, called Solutions and Other Problems by Ali Bosch. Imagine if David Sedaris could draw. So what you get is a lot of very funny drawings with very funny sayings. But again, it's, she's talking about, like, chapter 15 is about plans and what happens about all your plans. So this is a fun book, I would say, to give to a young adult. I know Bill Gates recommends it. He's one of the people that was quoted. He says, I love to approach looking, listening, and describing with the observational skills of a scientist, the creativity of an artist, and the wit of a comedian. So get that for that special person who may not sit down and read a long novel, but would be entranced. And here's another one along this one. We have fun with this a lot, called Speaking American, the Visual Guide. And it's one of those things like how y'all use and you guys talk. That's the subhead. So, what it does, it'll, for example, I just saw this, the Pacific Northwest, and it'll tell you some of the Pacific Northwestisms we have. Oops, I know I keep doing that. And it'll have a word like bubbler, and it'll show you in maps just exactly where people use the word bubbler for a water fountain. So it's a fun conversation book. This is just something for someone who, might look at your novel and think, oh, geez, but this is something they'll look through.
Yeah, a bubbler. We have those in Wisconsin.
Exactly. It had green.
I mean, hello.
That's funny. It's a great book for people who like birds or are interested. Now, this is not, if someone's really into birds already, this is probably going to be a little too elementary for them. Although I enjoy looking at it. It's called What It's Like to Be a Bird. It's by David Sibley, who's the master of bird guides and stuff. And it goes through and it sort of busts some myths. It talks about, it's not a book that has to be read front to cover. You can just flip it open and say, oh, I've always wondered about woodcocks and snipes. Now, I doubt any of you have ever said that to yourselves, but they are lovely creatures. And I actually used to watch woodcocks in Jamaica Bay in New York City, the first place I saw one. It said if you ate like a bird, you might eat more than 25 large pizzas a day. That's how much they eat. The American white pelican is more than 2,000 times as heavy as a hummingbird. That's equivalent to the difference between a human and a blue whale. So, you're going to get to know interesting little facts and fidgets. And anyone who likes just backyard birding or looking at the birds in their backyard will get something out of this for a long time. All right. This was given to me by one of my other staff members. Men to Avoid in Art and Life. Yes, it's very good. And I can only read you a couple of, it has the old master paintings. I don't know if you can see those at all. And this one's entitled The Concern Troll. And the caption they have is, you should wear something less revealing if you want to be taken more seriously. So what it does is it takes some of the current things that women hear from men and apply them to these rather silly old master paintings. So it's fun. It's a fun little book. So, all right. Kids books. Are people interested in some good kid books?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go through these in a random order. Pardon? Oh, I do. Oh, yes, I do. When you wear your mask all the time.
I know.
Yeah. And I'm being very dangerous right now, but I'm trying to stay behind this.
Can I take this or do you?
Yes, you can take that. Absolutely. I am. You can listen from there. I'm actually on a Zoom call. Okay, yeah. So this is a book called The Talk, Conversations About Race, Love, and Truth. It's by a couple, Wade Hudson and his wife, Cheryl Willis Hudson. And I think many of us know about the talk that Black children often have with their parents. This goes across all sort of, it's not just Black kids. It's what happens, what to white kids, what's told to them, what gets told to Hispanic kids. And they're beautiful stories from a real wide range of perspectives. And it is for middle reader kids, nicely written, and I think can encourage a lot of good conversations, whether with a grandchild or, you know, okay, I need to move again real quick. I'm sorry. Go right ahead, Dave. Here's a young adult book I highly recommend by a Bainbridge author, Jennifer Longo. It's called What I Carry. And it's about a girl who's in the foster care system. And she kind of has it down because she was put in at birth. She was abandoned at a hospital. And when she was young, she did have one placement that the thought was she was going to get adopted. And the parents, after a little while, just said, no, we don't want this one. And so she was very hurt by both those events in her life. So she ends up on Bainbridge Island being cared for by a foster care woman of a certain age who thought she was done doing that, but this was going to be her last call. And she forms real community. It's a delightful book, very well done, really hits on a lot of issues of the foster care system very well. She's about to age out. This is her last placement, but it's really well done. And you'll recognize a lot. She does volunteer work at Islandwood, and one of her friends has a job at Blackbird. And so for adults, it's actually kind of a fun read. But if you have a teen, I would highly recommend this one. This is one of the books of the season. It's I Talk Like a River, and it's about a boy with a stutter. Can you see that? It's a beautiful, interesting book for children to sort of, I mean, and that's how he perceives how he talks. He doesn't talk straightforward, but he burbles and whirls and churns and crashes with his language. So it's a very compassionate book. It's in our front area where we have, and it's by Jonathan Scott, the PNBA flyer. It was in that, if any of you guys got that. But a wonderful book for the younger readers. Also, a wonderful seasonal book is 10 Ways to Hear Snow. And I don't even think I need to tell you much about that. Kathy Camper. When the world goes quiet, we learn to listen. So that's a lovely book. And let's hope we get at least one snowfall this year, right? Doesn't have to be deep, but this is another Bainbridge Island author. It's called The Camping Trip. And it's about a little girl who goes camping with her cousins. And they're used to camping. She is an urban kid and has never been out in the woods at all. And it's a fun, delightful story about the time she has out there in the woods. And you know, as she goes, and her illustrations are just beautiful and fun. So always like to support local authors too. For a middle reader, here's a book called A Whale of the Wild, Roseanne Perry. She did a book a few years ago called A Wolf Called Wander, which was also popular with middle reader kids. I would say 3rd through 6th, 7th, 8th grade, something like that. It's about an orca, a young orca whale, who's, obviously these are anthropomorphic. I can't even say the word today. She and her little brother end up being on their own, and they know they have to get back into the Salish Sea. So it's a story of their journey. So it's a beautiful book. Lots of appropriate, scary situations, but a lot of good. And I'm sorry, you guys. Hang on just a minute. Do you want me to just hand them to you, Connie? Thank you. We got short staffed today, that's why. Here's another book for teens. It's called Apple Skin to the Core. I don't know how many of you know, but to be a Native American and be called an apple is like being called an Oreo if you're black. This is written by a Native American or Indian writer who writes in verse, and it's sort of essays and verses, and it's a beautiful book, very revealing about his life and the damage on his community caused by Indian schools, about a young artist trying to make his mark and straddle both worlds. For any young adult who's interested in sort of understanding their neighbors here, this is a good book to read. It is a National Book Award long list, so kind of a
what a gorgeous cover.
I know, isn't that nice? And he
Yeah.
claims the apple. That's why he's saying skin to the core. So this is again sort of a timely book. Who doesn't want to cook with their grandchildren, right? Or kids.
Yeah.
So this is the American Test Kitchen, which we all know is pretty good. My first cookbook. So it's like good weekend activities, after school snacks. Let's get the kids in front of the chopping block and chopping board and the oven. So appropriate for kids as young as 5 and 5 and up to 8. It's a great read. I think we have plenty of copies of this. So this is my last kids book. There are so many more I could have gotten, and in fact, a couple of them were missing because we were, they're on reorder. This is a book called You Matter, and it's by a young man named Christian Robinson, who literally books saved his life. He was raised in a one-bedroom apartment in California with his 2 cousins, his aunt and his grandmother. He has become an enormously successful illustrator for other authors and for himself. And this is just a dreamy book about how each of us, when everyone thinks you're a pest, when something is just out of reach, when everyone is too busy to help, you matter. Oh, thank you. And this is just a beautiful book. And he's one of my favorite rising stars in the young children's literature area. So this is a sweet book and would be a wonderful bedtime storybook for any young.
What's the age level on that, Victoria?
I would say this is like, it can be toddler, but it can also go up, first, kindergarten, first grade. It's very simple. There's very few words, wonderful illustrations, but it's not I don't think it would be, some picture books can go a little older. This is a little younger, but it's one that I bet you go back to over and over. I have a few books that my daughter asked me to save. She's 21 now, and occasionally she will say to me, let's get out that book about, such and such, just to, because it had meaning to them. So that's that. Next, some cooking books, because I know people do that at Christmas. This is called Local Dirt. It's by an author from the Portland area, Andrea Bemis, and it's about eating close to home. They're not fussy recipes. Pork chops with cranberry port sauce, but in each one she talks about how to localize it. How you can get the red wine from a local vineyard, you can add some honey from somewhere, try substituting frozen berries for the fresh cranberries. Oh, well, I don't know how that localizes it, but anyway, she's thoughtful about how you're going to cook and how you can make it, keep your footprint as small as you can. This was in the PNBA flyer, so we've got lots of copies of this up front. Okay. This is for someone who's a serious enough cook that they want to read about it. This is Dirt by Bill Buford. He wrote a book a few years ago called Heat, and he Dirt is the whole thing of um, what he did was he wanted to become a French chef. So he went to France with his twin sons and to learn the fundamentals and work a little bit. But he began to realize once he was there that in order to make things, it's one of those ones where you follow his evolution as a cook. And, it all gets down to dirt, doesn't it? So anyway, this is a good book about a very good cook, and it's a big saga, as you can see. It's not just you're not going to find recipes in it. You're going to find the skinny on what cooking means to someone who's very good at it. All right, this is for all of us and for our children. How Not to Die cookbook. And this is all 100 or so plant-based recipes to prevent and reverse some of the damage we've done to ourselves over the years. And they look yummy, don't they? And this has just been a good seller. He's got a whole thing going with this. Pesto carrot noodles with white beans and tomatoes. So this is a book I'm going to share. I have a daughter who's vegan, who was smart enough when she became a vegan that she went to a nutritionist. She said, I want to do this, but I want to do it right. I don't want to just eat junk food or frozen food, vegan food. And this is the sort of thing that she loves. So this is a good gift for someone who's maybe even starting out and just is trying to eat healthfully. So I know I've raced through it, but that's what I have. So why don't we talk a couple of minutes? I don't have too much more time, but are there any questions or any books you would like to? Oh yes, go right ahead.
Quick question. Do you have this list posted somewhere at the bookstore by the categories you just put them in? That would be
You know what? I don't have it right now, but what I will do is I do have it on my computer. So I will do it and I will send it to Janet, and she can, if you want it, she can send it out to you.
I will. I'll take care of that.
But if you post it in the bookstore somewhere.
Well, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I think I will do that. So.
And then also, Victoria, you could also include the link to the Senior Center YouTube channel so they can watch your presentation.
Okay, that's nice. Always thinking, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
One of the books
go ahead.
One of the books I'd like to recommend is, and you didn't show it, but I got it last year. It's called Lost Words.
Isn't that beautiful?
It's large, but
yeah.
For young kids, you can read it. I mean, you can go a long time. I gave it to a couple of teachers, and I just absolutely love it. And I think that that's just a really awesome book.
That's a very good suggestion. Yeah,
illustration is fabulous in it.
Yeah. The other thing, very quickly, not to keep promoting things, but for those people who don't want to go out too much and like audiobooks, do know that you don't have to go through Audible, which is an Amazon company. But if you go to our website, you'll see a link to Libro.fm. And that's actually Madeline Fitch's book I listened to before I had my hands on it. So there are, between what they've done with production values and the narrators they have now, I remember being a kid and hearing the books on tape and they were just kind of sing-song. But it's a fabulous way to listen to books too. So if you're interested in that, you can download books from our webpage.
I just quickly wanted to mention, if somebody else is interested in romance, Stacey Abrams, that marvelous Georgia.
Yes.
She writes romance novels under Selena Montgomery.
Yes, and we are getting them in. In fact, they may be here by now. But have you read any?
I haven't. I'm curious, but I'll be down to get. I'm curious. I'm not a romance reader, but I'd love to read some of her stuff.
I have a recommendation. I don't know if you have it there. It's called Braiding Sweetgrass.
Oh, yes, of course we have that. We have both the hardcover and the soft cover. And that's a wonderful book.
Yeah, that's one of the most beautiful books. We're reading it for a book club, and we're reading one section at a time. and it certainly promotes a lot of discussion. It's so beautiful. And Janet, I'm going to bring it up for next year for art group. And,
good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's by Kimmerer, Robin Kimmerer, and she's a Potawatomi Native American, and she's a botany professor at Cornell. I'm not sure, up there anyway. And she's brilliant, and she wants to, and how she incorporates her knowledge, her scientific knowledge, with what she really knows, which is what the plants actually are, and how they speak to each other, and how you speak to them, and honor them. And it's, oh gosh, talk about poetic writing. It's beautiful stuff.
You know, there was an interesting piece in the Washington Post one day last week about how the Native Americans are approaching climate change. And part of it is because, as you were pointing out, Sheila, they have a relationship with the plants and in ways that go so far back. And a lot of what Robin does in her book is sort of, you know, there's so much we have to learn. Let's put it that way. So
isn't that the truth, though?
Yeah. So I am going to have to sign off. I hate to do this to you. A half hour is hardly enough.
Let's say thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed doing this.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you. Thank you.
Suggestions.
See you.
But don't everybody go away, because we can talk and we can and we can tell ourselves who we thought we. So thank you, Victoria, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Let's see, how do I get off of here?
So would anybody else like to join and tell us what they think their favorite book of the year has been?
Well, I am just finishing One for the Blackbird, One for the Crow. And it's a prairie story in Wyoming, and it's two families interacting, and the character development is great, but the language is really beautiful, and it kind of ties into what you were just saying about the plants. The young girl in the story is so connected to the land and the plants and life, and it's a very beautiful book.
Yeah. Thank you. The one book I bought this year that I've used a lot is called 30 Walks on Bainbridge. And it has it's really been inspiring to go around the island and look at different areas of Bainbridge where, in this day when we're staying close to home, that I hadn't been. And so my goal is to finish them by the end of the year.
What was the name of it, Janet?
It's called 30 Walks on Bainbridge. And the sale of it benefits the Land Trust, and several, the bookstore definitely has it. That's where I bought it from. And several other shops around the island have it, but I have enjoyed using that book.
I was going to say too, I just finished The Warmth of Other Suns, and I passed it on, and I already bought Cast because I want to read that. But it was interesting to me while I was reading The Warmth of Other Suns, how often she used the word caste when she was writing about different things. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then this is the other book that I got that's by the
Yes.
I haven't read that yet, but that's
you're in a treat, Rita. Honest to goodness.
I know, I'm sure that I am. So I gotta
be sure to read The Water Dancer. Be sure to read The Water Dancer too.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, Between the World and Me, I think I've read it 4 times now because I've had it in different book groups. But it's quite an amazing book. I read it about once a year, kind of thing.
One book that I've got that I want to read is a book called The Cold Millions, and it's by Jess Walters, and he lives in Spokane. And it's a story of immigrant families and what happened at the turn of the century with unions. And that's kind of next on my list. But meanwhile, I'm reading this book called Deep River, and it's about a Finnish family that came, and it's the saga of them coming to southern Washington and growing up here. And they're both stories about the same era. And you've sometimes, I think they're called the Wobblies, have I got the name right?
Wobblies, yeah.
Yes, that sometimes you hear on Channel 9 on Crosscut, you hear the story of the Wobblies.
Oh, great.
So if there are no more suggestions, I'm going to say au revoir until next week.